Hi people, it's me, Anja, my pronouns all she and her, and welcome back to my channel for a new video. I know technically I'm rather late to this trend because every time I look up this trend on YouTube, all the other videos are from like a few years ago or whatever, so I don't know exactly who invented this trend or if it came from Bookstagram or anything like that. But anyway, I asked for specific book recommendations from Twitter a few weeks ago, and I received these 6 book recommendations. So here we are. Thank you so much for everyone who submitted recommendations. So with that said, the first recommendation is a book with good disability representation, which is excellent because it's right up my alley. I've made multiple videos about disability representation in the past, and in fact, a few weeks ago, I made a video about specifically chronic illness representation. So aside from that, I would highly recommend, like, On the Bright Side. This book was absolutely so fantastic and it was so good. Like, it's a YA contemporary following an HFH main character, as well as a boy who discovers that he has MS. And I loved the depiction of different kinds of disability, especially, like, this fact that, like, I think the girl whose HFH has been navigating that whole entire life, whereas the boy with MS has just recently discovered that, and those different journeys are very valid because obviously they're all disabled people in real life who've known that they're disabled their entire life, and then other people who are new to that community. Does that make any sense? Anyway, I read this book last summer and I think it's absolutely so excellent and it's so well done. I loved the characters, I loved the romance, I loved, like, the girls' friend group. I think it's so important to find friends and find allies within the disabled community, and like, it's just so validating. If you didn't know, I'm disabled myself, and I just love this book so much. I think it's excellent. I think it's so good. I think it's so underrated. Books with disability representation are often, like, not as promoted or featured or anything as much as, like, other books, and I don't really know why. But anyway, with that said, I would definitely recommend this book, as well as, like I said, that other video that I mentioned before. So anyway, with that said, this book is absolutely so excellent and it's so good. So I would definitely highly, highly recommend it. The next book recommendation that I received is a sapphic romance that had me giggling from all the banter and pining. And when you say pining, I specifically think of like a slow burn sapphic romance, but honestly, I haven't read a lot of slow burn sapphic romances in a really long time. So the last sapphic YA book that I read that had me giggling literally audibly from like the cute banter and the chemistry and everything was It's a Love Skate Relationship. This story is a YA contemporary following, I believe it's a like lesbian hockey player, and she teams up with a bisexual like figure skater. And when I say team up, I mean like they are not necessarily forced to work together, but it's kind of like stubbornly, you know what I mean? But anyway, I think this book is so good. Charlie as a main character, I believe that's her name, like, she is so awesome and I love her character development, and like everything about her makes so much sense. I love the writing, the romance is so adorable and it's so well done. I love the family dynamics, her relationship with her parents and her brother and everything makes so much sense. I loved all the sports elements. This book is absolutely so excellent, and I read it in January and I think it's so good. Again, it's so underrated, which I know I say all the time about literally every single book ever, but I think this book is so good and it's so awesome. I just love it all. So anyway, that's my recommendation. But again, I did make a video about sapphic book recommendations in general like a month ago or something like that. So again, I would recommend that video as well if you want more recommendations, like in general, but this video is obviously more specific. So here you go. Anyway, there's that. Next book recommendation that I received was YA book with Clueless movie vibe, other than Emma, because Clueless, if you didn't know, is a loose adaptation of Jane Austen's book, Emma. And I don't really like Clueless that much. And honestly, the last Emma retelling or loose ML retelling that I read was recommended reading, which I believe I talked about in my last video if I'm not mistaken, because I read it like less than 2 weeks ago. But anyway, for those who don't know, this book is a YA romantic contemporary following a gay main character who's a bookseller, so therefore he's like giving out book recommendations and everything. And recently, like, he was recently embarrassed by a guy that he had a crush on whom he thought liked him back, but he didn't. So he's a bit hesitant to enter into a new romance, but maybe he will. Who knows? Anyway, I thought this book was so good, and it was so cute, and I loved the banter and the chemistry between the two of them. Like, I love a good, solid, queer romance. This book is so excellent, and again, it's so underrated, which I know, again, I say that all the time, and I say that in every single video ever, so now that word probably has no real meaning to it. But anyway, I think this book was so good, and it was so wholesome, and sweet, and awesome. So anyway, with that said, I would definitely highly, highly recommend it. The next book recommendation that I received is Soft Fantasy with East Asian Vibes. So honestly, this was probably the hardest book recommendation that I've ever received, just because historically, I don't really read a lot of soft or cozy or lower stakes fantasies, but then I scoured through all of the middle grade fantasies that I've read, and I discovered Eva Evergreen's Semi-Magical Witch, which is a middle grade fantasy following an East Asian main character who must complete a coming of age, like, magical quest, or else she risks losing her magic forever, which I guess is more high stakes than lower stakes. But I loved the world building in this book. I think it's so cozy and so atmospheric. I think this book is so good, and it's so awesome, and it's so well done. I remember loving the characters and the plot and the world building and everything about it. I think this book is so good, and it's so well done. I haven't really talked about this book in a really long time since I promoted it like 4 years ago, but I remember thinking that it's so excellent and it's so well done, and the author is East Asian as well. So anyway, with that said, I would definitely highly, highly recommend this book. The next book recommendation that I received is kind of from the same book recommendation that I just gave, but I separated them. But anyway, this one is a book that feels like a collection of pastel colors, which is very niche, and then I thought of like a soft, cozy fantasy as well when I was looking for the other one. But anyway, the book that I found was The Tea Dragon Society, which I feel like is a graphic novel that everybody has read if they've read like middle grade fantasy graphic novels. So maybe you've already read this one. But anyway, for those who don't know, this story is like a middle grade fantasy following a young apprentice who finds a dragon, and it's very like low fantasy. It's very good. I think it's excellent. I love the illustrations so much. I love this entire series. I can't remember if it's a trilogy or a duology, but anyway, I think this series is so good, and it's so wholesome, and it's so well done. I loved the story, the characters, the illustration, the art, the world building, the plot. Like, everything about it was so excellent, and it's so well done. And it's quite easy to read too. Like, I think it's like less than 100 pages or something like that. But anyway, this book is absolutely so excellent, and it's so good. So with that said, I would definitely highly, highly recommend it. The last book recommendation that I received was a book that you will devour the night before an exam, which is truly interesting because the only books that you should be devouring the night before an exam are your textbooks, or at the very least you should be sleeping, because if you're not well rested or well studied before an exam, you're less likely to receive a good grade. Not my autistic brain taking this question very literally, although they say that autistic people take everything literally, but that's not completely true, because that's kleptomania. But anyway, all jokes aside, a book that I would recommend for this vibe, which I think means like a fast-paced book that you read before an important deadline, because like the important deadline is going to happen anyway, is that Self-Same Metal, which is a YA fantasy following a black bisexual main character during Shakespearean London, right before Fae Uprising. I read this book recently, and it's definitely the most recent fast-paced YA fantasy that I just really enjoyed, and would definitely highly recommend. I know I talked about it in my last video, so my review is quite redundant, but I think this book is so excellent. I'm so excited to read book 3. Like, I think it might be out when you're watching this video, but I'm not completely sure. When I'm pre-filming videos, I'm not quite sure the exact date when the video will be coming out exactly, so I'm not quite sure on that, and I've completely forgotten the exact date when book 3 comes out. I can't remember if it's like the beginning of April or mid-April, but anyway, I love the characters, I love the plot, the world building, the bisexuality, the Black representation. I think it's all very good and very excellent. So anyway, with that said, I would definitely highly recommend this book. So in conclusion, I'm not sure if I would do a video like this again, just because for the first time, I'm very hesitant if any of my book recommendations, with the exception of the very first one, fit the vibe of what people were really looking for. You know what I mean? But anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below the lion emoji if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!